Mr. President, I want to thank Senator Ernst for putting this colloquy together, and what she just said with regard to the importance of having reliable sources here in America is absolutely right. And the supply chain issue is one that I hope we'll address in this COVID-19 package for starters, at least with regard to our personal protective gear, the PPE, because if we can't rely on having masks and gowns and other PPE made here in America, it's tough for us, particularly during an international pandemic like this, to be able to rely on countries like China. Also, frankly, some of the product coming from China has not been reliable itself. And so I appreciate what you're doing there, and also the work you're doing to encourage us to be more resourceful here at home, to be sure that we're doing the things we have to do to protect ourselves from foreign influences, including from China. Part of our issue with China, I think, is that for the last several years, a lot of us point fingers at China, and we're not pointing the fingers, frankly, at our own internal problems. We need to get our house in order here in America and protect ourselves better. We have legislation to do that was just reported out of the Government Affairs Committee today, and it has to do with this issue of China coming to the United States and systematically targeting, promising research, promising researchers, and saying, we'd like to get that research. The research, of course, is often supported by the U.S. taxpayer. So it's sort of, tough here for us in America to lose our research to other countries and our innovation and our intellectual property. But boy, it's particularly tough when taxpayers have paid for it. $150 billion a year of taxpayer money goes to the National Institutes of Health, the National Science Foundation, the Department of Energy to do basic research, and that's good. We've helped to develop some important therapies and even cures for some kinds of cancer. We've helped to develop the internet. It's been very helpful in manufacturing processes. A lot of great things have come out of that research. But one thing that really troubles me is that for 20 years now, China, taking the lead, other countries as well, Iran, North Korea, and Russia and others, have again targeted these researchers and this research and said, we want to get that, and frankly, get it on the cheap, because the research is being paid for by our tax dollars. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. Just recently, in my home state of Ohio, there was a case along these lines. And I applaud the FBI and the Department of Justice, our U.S. attorneys, for finally getting on top of this issue. We spent a year studying this issue here in the Congress in what's called the Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations that I chair. And we found out this was a huge problem. We wrote a report late last year. In the report, we implored our federal law enforcement agencies to get on this issue. In fact, we had a hearing where an FBI agent testified and said, it's true, we haven't been focused on this, and we've got to make that up now. And they are making it up. They are arresting a number of people. They are doing the things that should be done to try to stop some of this really stealing of our seed corn, of our technology, of our innovation, our intellectual property. So here's the Ohio example. Just recently, the FBI announced that it had arrested a researcher connected with the world-renowned Cleveland Clinic and Case Western Reserve University. And this individual had received a huge grant from the National Institutes of Health, NIH. That grant was for about $3.6 million. But then the same individual, of course, not telling NIH or telling the Cleveland Clinic or Case Western or anybody else, accepted money from China. And in the contracts that we were able to research during our investigation, these contracts with China say you're not allowed to reveal that you have this relationship with China, that you're getting the money from China. They not only gave this guy money, they gave him $3 million, they gave him a deanship at Wuhan University. And they gave him money to hire people in Wuhan. They gave him the ability to travel around America recruiting others. We think he recruited 30 or 40 people, according to the FBI. Again, these are all allegations. This arrest has been made. He actually is alleged to have taken biological samples from Cleveland, Ohio, to China. So taxpayer-paid NIH research, literally, physically taking these to China. They also, by the way, provided lodging for him. A 3-bedroom apartment in Wuhan, that's luxury. So this is about money. This is about, unfortunately, people who are not patriots, but instead are willing to sell us out by selling their research, their expertise, that our taxpayers have funded to China and other countries. NIH recently, by the way, fired or forced the resignation of 54 researchers. Well, not ones and twos and threes, 54 people. We've been pushing them hard to find out who these people are and what they're doing, but they haven't been willing to reveal that yet because this is a matter under investigation. They have told us that of those that are under investigation at NIH, 90% have ties to China. 90%. So wake up, America. Here we are. You know, we're in a situation where other countries, particularly China, have targeted American research, American researchers, and are now taking this back to China to benefit their military, to benefit their economy, to benefit their healthcare system. And by the way, I do not believe this is for academic purposes. It's wrong what's happening, but it's even more wrong because this is not as if they're taking it back to do joint research on an academic basis. Let me tell you what the State Department told us at our hearing on this topic at the end of last year. They said, and I quote, "The Chinese Communist Party has declared Chinese university systems to be on the front line of military-civilian fusion efforts for technology acquisition." This is our own State Department. That means there's a clear link between the research that's being taken in America and the latest advancement in China's military and its economy. It's been happening for 20 years. It's time to put an end to it. The legislation that we were able to get through committee today takes a really important step in that direction. There are 4 or 5 elements of it. One of the most important to me is giving the FBI and other law enforcement the tools they need to go after these individuals by creating a new criminal law that says if you lie on these forms, if you're taking money from China, certainly a conflict of commitment and a conflict of interest, you know, you can be taken to task for that and held accountable. Right now, you can't. They're arresting these people on things like mail fraud, tax evasion, you know, a little like how they used to have to go after gangsters before there were laws that directly related to racketeering and so on. So this is something where we need to be sure that we're giving people the tools they need. We also help the State Department to keep these people out. We help with regard to our universities to ensure that we're reporting and being transparent as to the money universities are receiving from China and other countries. So again, I thank my colleague from Iowa for having this colloquy. I see I've got 2 other colleagues here. I know they're really well-versed and involved in these issues, and I want to hear from them as well. But I would just say that I hope on a bipartisan basis, and by the way, our legislation is bipartisan. Our investigation was bipartisan. I would say nonpartisan. This is an American issue. We should all be standing up to protect the American research enterprise and to be sure that our taxpayers, when they pay for this important research, have the benefit of it rather than it being taken, in particular by China, to benefit their military and their economy, which has been going on for 2 decades. Time to wake up. With that, I yield to my colleagues. I don't know who's up next.